If I built a business that protected human life inside of the industrial workplace, could I build a boutique lane for myself? And would people value the fact that saving humans in the workplace and building world-class safety work environments would be enough to delineate us from everybody else?
Welcome to the Strategy at Scale podcast, brought to you by Scaling Up, Outthinker, and Growth Institute. Our mission is to cut through a sea of contradictory business advice and get to what actually works. We interview entrepreneurs and business builders who have successfully scaled companies across industries and extract proven high-impact strategies to scale the value of whatever you are building in the world. You just heard from Julie Copeland, CEO of Arbill. Her journey to becoming CEO is one of transformation, resilience, and strategic reinvention. Founded in 1945 by her grandfather as a laundry business for industrial gloves, Arbill evolved into a leader in workplace safety solutions. She grew up witnessing both the challenges and opportunities of entrepreneurship, with her father navigating a difficult path and her mother charting her own creative course. After forging her own path in data warehousing, Julie joined Arbill in 1997, eventually taking the reins in 2005. She was faced with the transactional business model and stiff competition, but she pivoted Arbill toward a bold new vision, helping companies build world-class safety environments through innovative products, education, and consulting. She transformed a traditional low-margin business into a high-margin solutions company with deep, loyal client relationships. Today, Arbill partners with organizations to not only meet but exceed their safety goals, ensuring that every worker goes home safe. I've had the opportunity to watch Julie as she implemented this transformative strategy, and in this episode, she shares her insights on how she did it, on leadership, innovation, and how focusing on a mission and purpose can drive both impact and financial performance. We'll cover the pivotal strategic shift that transformed Arbill's business model, how Arbill developed a structured rhythm for strategy execution, why aligning to a higher purpose is consistent with achieving higher profits. Ultimately, Julie's transformational strategy points to the power of combining three important strategic concepts. Number one, picking the right total addressable market. Number two, appealing to a higher value job to be done. And number three, serving customers with higher customer lifetime value. In other words, find the right number, total addressable market, of valuable customer lifetime value, underserved customers, jobs to be done. Let's dive in with Julie Copeland.
The company was founded in 1945 by my grandfather, Robert Bickman, and we started as a laundry business. We laundered gloves. Gloves at the time were incredibly expensive, leather gloves. They were made in Illinois. And he had an opportunity to protect the Bud Company in the Philadelphia area. So he picked up his family from Detroit and he moved them to Philadelphia. And he protected the Bud Company and he had the opportunity to launder the gloves for them. And that began.
What is the Bud Company?
It was an organization that made railroad cars. You don't have that kind of manufacturing in Philadelphia anymore, but at the time, Philadelphia and specifically the Huntington area where Arbill headquartered for a while was a very large manufacturing area for Philadelphia.
And why do you say he had the chance to protect the Bud Company?
Because he made gloves for them. And I think of hand protection.
These aren't gloves that you wear out. These are...
Yes, these are gloves to ensure that somebody doesn't get hurt on the job. And I'm not altogether sure at the time if my grandfather saw it in the same way I see it. He may have just seen it as this is a glove, they need it. They developed it to meet that risk. It was a customized product for them. So I tend to think that our values carried generationally, and he looked at it as an opportunity to protect them. And because they were so expensive, it was important to launder them. So they laundered the products, got the oils off of it, and then they could put this product back in use. But yes, it's not a glove that you're wearing because you're cold outside. It's a very thick layered leather product to protect the hand.
And then when did your father join the company?
My dad joined, to my understanding, in the 70s. He was in college, came out of college, and joined the family business. I don't think he worked anywhere else before coming to Arbill. In fact, I'm pretty certain he didn't, because my grandfather was quite sick, and my dad wasn't going to have that long of a window to have the opportunity to work with his father. And so he got right in there with my grandfather, and they worked together for a couple of years, and then my grandfather had passed away.
And were you born? Did you get to know your grandfather?
I was 3 or 4 years old when he passed. So I have a vague memory of being on his lap. I can see the chair and him in his big hands, and he was a very tall, big man, but no, very little.
So did you, growing up, I imagine, like many children of entrepreneurs, your father was into the work and he brought it home and he talked about it. He grew up, or did you not?
So my household, I had 2 entrepreneurs, actually. My dad very much brought the work home some days, but not every day. In fact, he'd whistle up the driveway, zippity-doo-dah, come in the house, put his briefcase down, and work was behind him. It was all about the family. The days he didn't whistle up the driveway were the days we would hear about the business, and the business was difficult for him. Business for my dad was difficult, I would say. He found it to be a very challenging endeavor. He did well some years and not others. It's a roller coaster ride, right? My mom was an interior decorator, and she had her own business, and she talked more about it. And I would say seeing her be an entrepreneur made me think like any of this is possible. And both of them doing what they did gave me that real feeling of designing your own path. And especially for me, I wanted one of impact was possible. And so seeing them do it, I saw myself in both of them. It felt like it's really possible. Not without risk, but possible.
Okay, and I want to get to the impact and where that came from. But just to set up the context a little bit more, you have a sister. And do you have other siblings?
Nope, just my sister.
And did your sister also grow up feeling like that she wanted to be an entrepreneur as well? Or?
I think so, yeah. My sister definitely loved business like I did as well. We both got there different ways, but she is incredibly competent. Things about business a little bit differently than I do, but I think any entrepreneur does. And so we both have that entrepreneurial spirit for certain.
So when did you know that you were going to go into your father's business?
I came out of college and I went into an entrepreneurial business called Skyborough, which at the time was a data warehousing type of business. And I call it that today, but we didn't know it was called that then.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We would take content and we could digitize it in a way. It was the beginning of relational databases that were easy to manipulate. Access was just coming online, the Microsoft product, and you could take lots of content that were in B2B catalogs. And now, instead of all of that being cut and paste, we could take all that content, put it into the different columns, and then create the relationship for a master product where you'd have one item with 5 sizes or 5 colors and start to pull everything together in a digital way. And then we publicize the content through Quark, or Illustrator, these, again, just brand new tools coming online. And we used a pagination software component that would take you from access over to the layouts. And then you could print, then eventually you could put it on a CD. And then just at the tail end, as I was ending this portion of my career, you could actually take the content and then put it on the web. The web was just coming around.
Wow. So, now I'm seeing how that actually plays a role then later in the story. I didn't know that part of it. How did you get it? Did you study computer science or technology, or how did you happen to choose this as the venture?
So I went to Syracuse University and I went to the Newhouse Communication School, and I thought I was going to be a broadcaster. I went to school for broadcast journalism. I am incredibly grateful for that education because it really gave me the power to tell a story and communicate. And communication is such an important element to leadership. So I'm forever grateful for that background. I think the difference for me, and I didn't realize it till senior year, there was something that was happening on our political landscape at that time that I realized I don't think I can be the one to tell the stories anymore. I'm going to go build my own story. And so I came out of being in that field, but to this day, I can write a great business plan. I can communicate to my team. And so I still think it was a great education. So I pivot and then I go into the entrepreneurial path. And my dad and I talk all the time because I love business and he wants to hear what am I up to in my world. I want to hear what he's up to in his world. And having lunches with him on a regular basis was easy company because we both love chatting business. And my dad was going to go and hire, I think, his third or fourth marketing person. And it was clearly an area of expertise that I had, given what the business was. And so on board I came. And that was really an interesting time for me because I went from being somewhat of a co-owner of this organization and having a lot of say and participation in where we were going and what we were doing to, in a lot of ways, being a daughter.
So you went into a marketing role, but you're saying people related to you as a daughter.
Well, and mostly my dad. I mean, I would have all these ideas and things that we needed to do. And I was met with a lot of reservations. So I had to come up with a way. I credit this period of my life with a time that I learned how to take this great communication skill I had and learn how to sell. Because I realized if I was going to get anything done in this company, I was going to have to learn how to close the deal and close the deal internally. And so
internally, you're talking
I learned how to then get what I needed to get done and really created a lot of growth opportunities for the business by let's just try. Let's try this. I'll go over here and try this. And so that began a new path for Arbill.
What's one thing that you had to add to your communication repertoire to be able to, because you came in with a lot of training, what's one thing you had to add to become effective at selling?
I was met with a lot of not now. We're not going to do that now. Or slow down. And slow down meant not now. So, or a nice way of saying no, but I think there were business books recently read that said, you don't want to say no to your leader, so you say not now, but really it was no. So one of the big things for me that I recognized is that so many of our customers were being bought by big conglomerates. We went.
So, but first, what is the company at this stage? Because you're no longer just washing leather gloves. So what is the business, so we can visualize who your customers are?
Yeah. So I'm coming into a company that is doing telemarketing. Telemarketing is a lot of salespeople on the phone calling as many companies as they possibly can to sell them products. A lot of safety products, a lot more gloves now. In the 70s, OSHA comes into play, which is the governing body for safety protection in the workplace. And my dad definitely rides that wave, and he then brings on a lot of additional products besides gloves.
Okay.
So he is now a distributor of many different safety products. He gets various lines, and along the way, getting a line was a path to growth. So at the
getting
time,
some level of exclusivity.
Right. So you were trying to get 3M or Honeywell, or at the time it was a brand called Norton and DuPont. And you had to get these lines and then work to grow them.
Yeah.
And you grew them through calling people to see what they needed and quoting them on products and hoping that your price was the price they were willing to buy it at.
Gotcha.
And that's really the business at the time that I came on board.
And so when do you start getting a sense of, I don't know exactly what question to ask here, but you could be there just working, learning the business, and then eventually, if you do well, then taking over your dad's role and running the business. But you must have seen some things that you thought that the business could do different or bigger, or could be, start developing a vision or seeing issues or opportunities. When did that start?
I joined in 97, and by 2005, I take over as CEO. So the first couple of years, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, which is turn on marketing and build newsletters, create some thought leadership in the marketplace around safety, collect emails. At the time, we're really still mailing, and we're building a catalog, and we're sending this catalog out to our customer base. I would build the catalog. I would build what we called Slim Jims at the time. It was a postal mechanism. You could get a catalog the size of a very large postcard, and we would send those out 2-3 times a year, and you would see a spike in sales. And so leveraging this business that I was part of previously, this whole content management piece, and I could push content out quickly. And
that's amazing. Like, you understand all the database and the formulating, and then you also understand communication. So it's a natural combination.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was lots of products, and they were picking up more product lines, and we could bundle this catalog together. It was filled with all different types of safety products. And off we went, meeting the market, and it was followed with people calling them, did you get the catalog? Can I help you with any items? And everything was very onesie-twosie based. Yes. You were just hoping for that order of gloves, and everyone was excited about $1,000 order here and there.
Yes.
And it was great. It was definitely not a sustainable long-term model for several reasons. And so this I start to see early 2000 that, I now have a real handle on it. I've put the marketing thing together. It's working well. And I'm dipping my toe into what really is the future for sales.
Well, how do you realize it's not sustainable? Is it that catalogs are going away? Is it that you don't have loyalty of, like, you're not guaranteed to have these lines? You don't owe the lines, or what is it that you're not?
The piece that I notice is that there's not client loyalty. Yeah. Everything is so transactional based. Okay. It's only going to happen if I send a catalog. It's only going to happen if I have a phone call with them. That's an expensive business model, right? I know how much those catalogs cost. I know what that postage is. How do we grow fast enough to afford this lack of repetition? Some clients got sticky. And for those that got sticky, they would get an outside sales rep that would come visit them. And they would say, I have more than just gloves now, and I have glasses, and I have hard hats. And we would have a couple core customers that we were selling more things to, but we didn't have contracts. We didn't have large customers.
What are your customers like, just so we can visualize?
A typical customer for us was a client within a 300-mile radius of Philadelphia, and they had around 5 to 300 employees. Okay. That was our sweet spot.
Got it. And these are employees that are lifting stuff, that are working in spaces that need
safety.
It's
a very industrial-based environment, not the safest looking environments at the time, really dirty, dark.
Corrugated board manufacturers, paper manufacturers.
Small foundries.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Metal stamping.
I can picture that.
Yeah.
So you see that you keep having to acquire the customer anew. And in very few cases is there serving them well.
It's very transactional. Everything is based on, I'll buy your glove if it's 10 cents cheaper. Okay. So no value proposition, just be cheaper.
Yes.
And in some ways, for some lines, we could be, because we bought better. Yeah. And we were starting to import our own line of products. And so if they really wanted it cheaper, it was really a competitive advantage that my dad started to do for Arbill, which is, I have this brand glove, but I also have our glove, and our glove is cheaper than that. It will protect you equally. Here are the features of it. And that's an opportunity. And it was a winning formula for us, especially because we were so price focused.
Yeah.
That was the culture at Arbill.
Okay.
Be the cheapest.
Gotcha. So do you remember, there probably wasn't one moment, but was there, like, what is it, when did you come to the realization that this was not sustainable and there had to be something, a different approach or a different strategy?
Yeah. So I was getting my MBA at Temple, and I was talking, it was the keynote project, and I was talking to my professor, and we were walking ourselves through the Walmart model, be the cheapest. And how do you be the cheapest? You got to buy, and be bigger, bigger, bigger. And I personally did not feel that was playing off of my strengths. So if I was going to be the future leader of this organization, there's nothing about that strategy that provided excitement for me. I didn't think I was very good at that. I didn't think that I could see how that was even possible for a company of our size. There were some threats happening in the environment at that time. You're starting to see integrators come online. Grainger and Fastenal are starting to come online, and they are bigger and they have more and they are public and they have a lot of money and they are cheaper than me.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're competing, like, if we want to link it to kind of strategy concepts, there's the generic strategy of cost leader or differentiated.
Yeah.
Cost leader, you realize that economies of scale and purchasing power are really important.
Yeah.
And you realize that these big companies are going to win on those, even if you are importing. But yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So they have the purchasing power by far. And I also saw that our customers, which I just explained to you, are this under 300 employees and they're within a 300-mile radius of Philadelphia, they're disappearing. They're getting bought by these big conglomerates. And at the time, Tyco was a force. They were buying everybody, and they were buying my customer base.
Okay. So not only were your competitors going to have higher bargaining power than you, but now your customers are also going to have higher bargaining power because now you're going to be negotiating with Tyco instead of the 300.
Well, I wasn't negotiating with Tyco because I was just getting written off. Like, I wasn't even a factor in the ball game. I thought, well, could I be a factor in the Tyco ball game? But we'll see. So back to this MBA program that I was in, because I recognized I didn't feel like I could ever be competitive enough on the price side of it. I also knew that I had the capability to grow a business. I had already done it once before. But for me, I really wanted to build something that was going to have impact and do good in the world. So coming back to this idea that if I built a business that protected human life inside of the industrial workplace, could I build a boutique lane for myself? And would people value the fact that saving humans in the workplace and building world-class safety work environments would be enough to delineate us from everybody else? Okay. And could I, in fact, knock on the Tyco door and say, I think we can help you surpass your safety goals and create a world-class safety work environment where you have less injuries, you have higher morale, you're more effective and efficient in your workplaces, and ultimately drive your profits up because of it. And frankly, amazingly enough, my dad said, not now. We'll go back to that. And I said,
so your dad, you're the CEO, but your
I'm
dad,
not the CEO.
not the CEO yet. Okay, this is before.
This is early 2000s. Yeah. And it's about 2000, let's go with 2003. And I say to my dad, we need to do two things. One is I would really like to go down the safety path. Meanwhile, we still have paper towels and wires and tools in the warehouse. We are not just a safety player. Right. I want to go down a safety path and I want to go get big business. And so I knock on Tyco's door.
Okay.
And Tyco said yes.
Wow. And why is what did they hear from you or see from you that had them say yes?
I was able to walk Tyco through the path of protecting human life. And I had a good enough price because you still had to be competitive. But because I only focused on safety and said, I don't think I can be competitive in any of these other items. I'm only going to double down on just being really good at safety. I was able to be competitive enough. I don't say I'm the most competitive, but ultimately I would be able to save them more money because if they looked at what their injury rates were, if I reduce those for them, is it really about the price of a glove or is it really about saving a human life? And they agreed and they said yes.
And so who are you speaking to at Tyco?
At the time, it was the chief procurement officer.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Shelley Stewart was the head of Tyco's procurement group, and he signed my contract. And it was also the first time Arbill had a contract. So I'm now entered into a 3-year contract. I didn't have that before. We just dialed and got an order. We were excited if we got a $1,000 order. And I've now just presented the organization with a multi-million-dollar contract.
Wow. So you come back and you had this hypothesis or this theory or this passion or whatever that is. And then you came back and you yes. proved that the market wants it.
Yeah. So at this stage, though, I come back with this win. I have thoughts about how we should implement this win. But I am still working with an older leadership structure, some older leadership operational behaviors. And this business nearly takes Arbill to the ground, but so does all of it. It's not just this piece of the business. Actually, this piece of the business starts to give us reach and give us other brands and gives us...
When you say this piece of the business,
the Tyco piece.
Okay, the Tyco business. Gotcha. Yep.
But as a whole, Arbill wasn't really being run really well at the time. And leadership, culture, proper strategy, still holding on to an old strategy, trying to adopt to a new strategy. We were really, really stuck. And now we're in 2005 and my dad hands over the reins and says, I don't know how to fix it. It's yours. If you can fix it.
Wow.
And that's 2005. And then I immediately do 2 things. One is I have to really work that leadership team. And then I also...
Develop, change,
develop, restructure, talk candidly, honest conversations. The organization was run. We had a meeting, and then there was the meeting after the meeting, and that was really where the decision was made after the meeting because they didn't really talk openly in the meetings. So you had to make sure you were in the discussion after the meeting to find out what really happened. All that stuff had to stop.
So leadership, culture, behavior was something to fix.
Yeah, and none of it was aligned. Nobody was talking honestly with each other. Nobody knew how to have respectful conversations and tell the good and the bad and the ugly. Everyone was really good at sharing the good, but you have to share the ugly just as much, and you have to get out in front of it and find your way forward. And there's plenty of smart people here, but if you're not talking to each other, then what do you want to accomplish? And so this is really where I bring that communications to bear. I had read, whether it was Crucial Conversations or Fierce Conversation from Susan Skye. I handed the book out to the whole leadership team and said, from this day forward, we all speak truth. And at that point, I also make a big commitment to protect human life. And I'd said that to my dad. I'm thrilled to take over this business, but please know, in doing so, we are going to save lives.
And so what specifically is that? It's a statement? It's ending carrying SKUs? Or what is that? What's involved in now aligning the company behind?
Well, it goes back to some of the other things I was talking about at the time of my MBA. I tried to dip my toe into this outlook, but I wasn't getting alignment from everyone. Yeah. So now I'm leading this organization and I'm now able to create full alignment. So we had all these items in the warehouse that were not safety. So we moved through them with our clients. We provided a favor for someone here or there if we needed to, but we stopped providing products.
You sold them, you didn't restock them.
Right. We stopped providing things that we provided no expertise on. We doubled down on innovation. We really looked inside of all these work environments that we were partnered with, and we kept innovating new products to help create even safer work environments. And then through the years...
What do you mean developing new products?
Well, so I had shared with you, my dad had started with importing product. When he was importing, he was doing a Me Too strategy. So if there was this, well, the best brand's product, we would come up with a Me Too item on the import strategy. I pivoted away from the Me Too strategy to say, we have these incredible factories that are our family partners, and let's innovate with them. We see the risk in the workplace. We can develop what the product's going to be to mitigate the risk in the workplace. So we started to take these partnerships and develop products now that would really change the predicament inside of the work environment for the client. But you can hear through 80 years of business, this constant need to build new strategy, new innovations, new pivots along the way. And then it's not enough, right? Telemarketing, when my dad did that, was revolutionary. Like people calling and doing these kind of call plans, that was lights out. I say that now and you're like totally old school, right? But a business that's 80 years old, you have to constantly recognize this is not working anymore, this strategy. And now we need a new strategy. And the new strategy at the time was let's do catalogs. So that became an addition to the telemarketing. And catalogs was a big thing at the time. You might remember all the J. Crew catalogs and all the catalogs that were coming out.
The whole Earth catalog.
In that mix, right? With our catalog. And it worked. It went out and people bought until it didn't work anymore.
I gotcha. Yeah. So I guess it just was resonating with me is like three things. One is of hearing this repeatedly is there is often a moment where a company says we are no longer doing that. And maybe we don't carry that or we destroy all the inventory or something like that. And then so the commitment, but also the connection with the customers. I didn't realize that you would have that connection because now you have these longer term relationships as opposed to transactions. And so you are able to understand what be their partner. And so it's like, what would be an example? It helps to visualize. We have an example of, I don't know, you realize there is an unmet need or there needs to be a better solution and you developed.
So early on, I mean, we are now partnered up with several different large organizations, and we developed a chemical resistant product for one of our clients that had tremendous dexterity. So some of these really high chemical use gloves, you felt like you were almost a robot in them. They're really heavy duty. And we were able to come up with a new formulation on a new liner that allowed greater flexibility, and it was a game changer for them. Now they didn't have hand fatigue. Now they didn't have as many issues with workman compensation issues where they couldn't work because their hands were hurting, and just a better work environment for them. So that's just an example at that time where now we have these real rich relationships where they're winning because they have this subject matter expertise coming to them, or we're willing to design products with them. We are completely connected with them. So we see their environments, we're visiting their environments, and we're creating product innovations for them. And that builds out the Truline brand. So that's the beginning of pivoting from my dad, who started with importing Me Too items, no brand on it, just it's less money and it comes from Arbill, to we're no longer going to do a Me Too brand. That wasn't good enough anymore. We had to pivot our strategy to now say, we're actually going to build our own brand of products that are just as good, if not better, than what our competition is doing, because we have firsthand look at what the dangers are inside of the work environment. We're just going to build a better mousetrap. We're going to build a better product for them. And Truline started to have a really meaningful following, created greater stickiness for us. So we're coming into your work environment and we're bringing TrueLine with us as part of our secret sauce to say, if I don't have it in my tool chest, I'm going to make it for you. I'm going to make you what you need to make sure your work environment is world class.
So is TrueLine brand at this time, do people think of it as lines of products, or do they think it of the service of building products? And why do you call it TrueLine?
We thought it was a cool name. I mean, we didn't have branding companies at the time. And I actually remember my dad had come back from a trip in Asia and he was really sick and we were sitting in the hospital and we came up with the name TrueLine. Like, that was it. It's a true line that will take care of you. Truth in this line of protection. And that was TrueLine. And we've stuck with the name ever since. And it's just a product line within Arbill that you can get. You can only get TrueLine from Arbill. And there are many companies that buy just TrueLine from us and resell it because they're their own distributors and they want that brand for their customers. Otherwise, it's part of our wonderful package where we can come in as a safety expert and develop products for you. We also have incredible relationships with 3M and Honeywell and DuPont, and we can work with them to say, we've really never gotten in a big way into the respirator lane, for example, and we can give them feedback about work environments that we see, and then they're too creating innovations. And Arbill prides itself on being in lockstep with all the manufacturers in the safety work environment to help bring the greatest innovations to the marketplace. So I'm describing one big strategy for Arbill around TrueLine, but it was also very important to us to go back to the manufacturers and demand of them and expect of them their own sets of innovations. Yes. And we were very comfortable and remain to this day very comfortable bringing innovations to the work environment. Whereas many of our competitors now, very few are out, hardly anyone that's a safety expert out there. That's a very difficult task for the 3M, Honeywell, and DuPonts and so on of the world, where they scratch their heads and say, who even helps us bring these products to market?
Why is that? I mean, is it your relationship with customers? Is it your alignment with the mission? So you'll do whatever for the mission, or is it your cultural creativity or innovativeness? What is it?
Most of the competition that we face are big MRO providers, maintenance, repair, and operations. So they have an enormous catalog of product, millions of product. You need a pipe, you need a fitting, you need a tool, you need a glove, you need a respirator. They want you to buy as many SKUs as you possibly can from us so we can put it all on one truck. Got it. And I think that's a wonderful thing, except for when it deals with human life. And when it deals with human life, you need a degree of subject matter expertise to ensure that you are still every day looking for the best ways to protect them. And we are constantly innovating, and there's opportunities to change that for your workplace every day. And a box mover who just wants to put everything inside that truck, they're not thinking about how can I make you safer. So for the big manufacturers that I've named who are sitting in labs developing great innovations to reduce the risks in the workplace, they don't have a way to get that product out to the marketplace because there are other big partners who are saying, it's your job to tell them. Gotcha. You need to get out there and tell them what you have. And that takes a lot of advertising dollars and so on and so forth. Whereas with Arbill, we take them right to our customers that we think it's applicable to and say, this is really what you need to be in.
So what do you think? What are some of the things? So like it could easily be, I can see another company saying, oh, we're going to change our mission to saving people's lives at work, right? But their salespeople are still getting compensated for filling the truck. They're measuring performance off of pushing products. They are selling lots and lots of SKUs. They are, there are all these other things. So there's metrics, there's culture, there's changing people. Like I can imagine a number of things you have to do to actually really align the organization behind it. What were the key most important things you had to do to truly live that purpose?
I think it really starts with the mission and the purpose and being bold enough to make the decisions that say we're not going to have toilet paper anymore, metaphorically. But instead of having those things, we are going to shop the world for the greatest in safety. And we are going to analyze our partner, our clients' near misses and their injuries. And we're going to sit around tables and we're going to keep solving the problem. So I'll give you a few examples of that. And this sort of brings us to current day. So a few of those examples are ways in which Arbill has pivoted through. I'm going to give you loosely product as well as services. So first I'll give you the service piece. We would go inside of organizations and we would see that their environmental health and safety staff were greatly understaffed. There's no way that one person could do all of the training, all of the safety audits, all of the implementations needed to really create a safe work environment. And because we understood it, we recognized there was an opportunity for us to help supplement EH&S departments and provide them the blind spots they're not able to see anymore because they're too insular, and or they can't possibly get to all the training classes that they need to get to. We'll help them. We'll do that. So we now have over 100 classes in both English and Spanish that we do on site for our clients. We do all kinds of audits, environmental audits, safety audits, industrial hygiene audits. So we cover that gap for them because we looked at it as product alone is not going to create world-class work environments. You actually have to bring an element of education and training and behavioral modification. Because one of the things we saw kind of quickly when we looked at near misses was there's a behavioral problem here. So we work to incentivize them with carrots. We work to first train them and help them understand and appreciate it. And a lot of times it helps organizations have the subject matter expertise come from the outside. That if everything is internal, how can you be good at making this and be good at this? Right? So you go be great at making this widget. We're going to be really great at making sure that you are safe. And that was the bridge to providing environmental health and safety services. Some other examples of things.
So it's a tactical question on this one.
Yeah.
At what meeting do you have that conversation about, hey, there's human behavioral issues, or as a part of the solution, we can provide that, or we can help them with that?
What meaning? Like when I'm talking to the customer?
When you in the operating of the business, when is there space or time?
Oh, I see.
How do you create space or time to have that kind of conversation?
So I'll come back to two other pivots that we later do in safety, but we have a structured approach to how we identify strategies and how we execute on strategies. So we practice the rhythm process that Patrick Vian had created, and we meet one time per year for 2 days, and we do a full SWOT analysis. Michael Borders, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what are our opportunities, and what are our threats? In order to gain opportunities, our entire employee base is motivated through our weekly meetings to get client feedback. It's part of our weekly system. In addition to that, every quarter we go through a start, stop, keep. So once a quarter, I bring the leadership team together and I say, what should we start, stop, keep?
How long is that meeting?
That is all day long. And then every week, the leadership group comes together for an hour and a half and we have an alignment meeting. So out of the leadership meeting, we come up with our goals or strategies for the quarter. And then every week we make sure we meet on those priorities that we decided that are getting us to our winning moves. And we make sure that we're aligned on them and that they're reaching their goal, their green status. And if they're not and they're red, why? They're red because we are implementing the biggest client we've ever had. They're red because we are understaffed in this area. They're red because what have you. And it's either red for 1 week and we say, no problem, we know you'll be back next week, right? Maybe someone's out on vacation, I don't know. Or you've been red for 3 or 4 weeks now. We have a problem. So we need to dig into this problem, and we may have to generate a new strategic direction because it's not working, or we need to do some other modification to get back on track. So that is our system for strategy.
So there's a learning, there are structures for an continual learning.
Oh, absolutely. I could be sending books out. I could be sending readings out. I drive a lot of that strategy work.
I just want to be able to understand like when you have time for that, because I think that is also an issue with strategy. Strategy takes time. And there's sort of like cognitive capacity that an organization has, and you have to have enough. Yeah. Okay, so you go with the other example.
You have to design it into the framework. If you don't, then you just keep going, and you wake up and you're Kodak.
Yeah.
You say, look what happened to us.
I love that. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So if we don't constantly read the pulse of the business, there's no way we could be around for 80 years. Yes. How would that even be possible? Yes. Right? So I was going to give two other examples of sort of, and then I'll give an even further example of a strategy play we're working on now. But we have lots of clients in the metal making steel foundry space, and we would look at their injuries or near misses with them, and there was this area which it just didn't make sense. They were tired, they tripped, there was nothing to trip on. They had headaches, and they would fall or they would trip again, nothing to trip on. So we would keep saying, what's the thing behind the thing, right? We would use this ISO mentality of, we got to get to the root cause. Mm-hmm. Why are they tripping? Why are they tired? Why do they have headaches? Mm-hmm. Now, when I give you the answer, it's not going to be, I'm not curing cancer here. I wish I could, but now it seems so obvious, but at the time, it finally hits us. The issue is that they are enormously dehydrated. And even though they're being offered electrolyte replacement products, these items are filled with sugar, food coloring, other chemicals, things that do other things to your body. Don't feel that great. And so you can have a crash from that. You can get your electrolytes to kind of even out, but you can still have a crash from it. You can also get a headache from the sugar. Yeah. So it's really not solving the problem. Now, today, there are a lot of clean items on the market, but at the time when we go shopping for, someone has to have a solution to this. Mm-hmm. And we found a doctor who had developed a clean hydration electrolyte replacement product that was truly clean. Mm-hmm. And we brought it to our customer, and it was an unbelievable game changer. Oh. The point of this is that because we are constantly looking at how do we improve the work environment, reduce these injuries, we are constantly on this journey of what's the next thing? Okay. What's the next thing to help that work environment? So now fast forward to today, one of the big growth areas in the U.S. at the moment is distribution centers. If you drove around Pennsylvania and in New Jersey, you would see warehouses popping up everywhere. We are a product world, right? And consolidated into a warehouse, and out to your house it goes, or out to your business it goes. So I'm sure you won't find this surprising, but forklift accidents are on the rise, right? These work environments are filled with forklifts, and pedestrians are getting hurt. So we then go back to our innovation mindset and say, there's incredible sensors out there. Can't we come up with a technology that the pedestrian can be alerted that a forklift is about to be in their purview, and they can jump out of the way? And these are just a couple of examples of our complete obsession with safety. And it gets back to who's our ideal customer. It's really two types. One is the very dangerous environments that have always valued saving life because their work environment is dangerous enough. They have to prioritize it. And then the other customer is that their work environment is generally not very dangerous, but they recognize by making safety as a core value or tenement to their business, they actually have far greater outcomes. Yes. And those two are ideal clients of ours. If you want it cheaper, faster, in a bigger box with a lot of stuff, and not valuing human life within your workplace, or probably won't be your fit. And it's our job to vet that out on the front end so that we can spend our time and energy helping those that care.
Now, I could see you arriving at that conclusion through an entirely mathematical, financially driven thought process, right? Even without the mission. You could say that those are more valuable customers. They're people that you can create more value for, so they're willing to pay you more, and you could be more differentiated so you can keep them, so they're valuable long-term customers. You derive at it from a mission.
Right. I want an impact.
Yeah.
I believe, and I did believe right from the time that I came into Arbill that I knew how to build a business. I had already done one. I knew I could do this, but I wanted to have an impact. And I wanted to go to sleep at night knowing I've made lives better. And I also think that has helped align with who comes to work at Arbill. We're very mission driven. And so getting back to the question you were asking earlier around, how do you create the KPIs and the priorities around it? We look for opportunities every single week to make workplaces safer. And we look at every opportunity every week. How did this opportunity come to be? What are you trying to solve for? How can we best serve them? And in more cases out of not, we are closing that opportunity and making our work environment better.
And so who are the people that are bringing the customer insights? Are they the salespeople? Are they the customer service people? Do you have people going out and just working, or are you?
So we have a business development team that go out with this view of the type of client they're looking for that would actually like Arbill to be their partner. So you have those, and if they're going out to the market to shop, they have their agenda of items they're thinking about. So we get served up that all the time. That's brought to bear our latest innovation. We had a brand new, very large customer of ours come and say, we need to have PPE delivered to us in vending machines. Okay. And the vending machine that has been on the market now for 30 years was never developed or designed for PPE. PPE is safety products. And so because we're only focused on safety, we went out and we were able to identify a solution that is PPE oriented only. And this product, this vending machine, you don't need any packaging. So I've now reduced a phenomenal amount of plastic. Every single pair of gloves has to be wrapped up in plastic and stuck inside of a coil. Oftentimes it doesn't really fit in the coil. Can you imagine a foundry? Their gloves are enormous and you're shoving this thing into a coil. It doesn't even fit. Oftentimes it gets stuck. You can think about that candy bar that you wish you could get, but it's stuck. So the gloves are always stuck. And you're putting glasses in there. And it was meant for a candy bar, not PPE. Yeah. And so we came out with a machine that is a drum. Every slot in the machine is unique to that one product. So also you have this candy machine that has all 4 extra larges in this one lane because you have 2 employees that need it. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, everything else has been depleted. Your mediums and larges are all gone. Yeah. Your 4X is fully stocked. Right. For the one person that needs it. Right. What a waste of space. Right. And in our machine, I only need to carry the 2 pair of gloves that person needs. When they swipe their card, open D4, and there's your glove. So there's no packaging, and it holds 3 times the volume of what the candy machine held. And fewer stockouts, and the technology behind it is revolutionary. I can see so much about why does John have to take 4 pair of gloves in a given week? So we can now look at it and say, he's in the wrong product. He should not be in a product that he has to go through so many. Oh, I see. So you are replenishing these? So I can replenish it. The client can replenish it, but I can also just look at the usage now and say, you're not even in the right product. You shouldn't be going 3 times a day to get an item. You should have it for an entire shift at the very least. Yes. So that's been an innovation because we learned from the BDR, this is something the client needs, and we came up with that solution. The other ways that we get information is from our safety advisors. Every one of our clients, we have safety advisor appointed to them. So they have this resource that gets 200 plus hours worth of safety training in a given year. This is their resource working with them, developing opportunities with them all throughout the course of a year. So if you go back to the story I shared before, which is I want to get you as much items as I possibly can inside of a truck. Yeah. My team is on the phone saying, what was your near miss this week? And how do I help you create an environment so you never have those again? A very different conversation.
Very different conversation. Yep.
Nonetheless, I'm winning. You're winning. You're leaning on me more. I'm bringing to bear more solutions for you, and your employees winning. So it's a win-win-win.
Excellent. So this is fascinating. I have so many more questions, so much more we can learn from, but I know we're reaching towards the top of our time with you. So what I just want to kind of know where you're going, what's next. So we start off, you are selling other people's products. Next, you're selling lots of other products. Then you start focusing on safety products. Then you start finding products for people. Then you start developing new products for you, inventing them, right? Then you start going into some services. And so it seems like you're kind of like moving up this ladder of value or something like that. And so what has happened since then and what happens next?
Yeah. Well described. That's exactly what's happened at Arbill. We start in this transactional mode and then we partner up and create the safety impact. And in 2015, we coined it safety care, this holistic approach. And safety care was now a 4-pronged approach. We had safety products. We had safety programs, which is product with the service wrapped around it. We had safety technologies, and we had environmental health and safety consulting services. So it was
all wrapped together as well.
Yeah, like healthcare keeps you healthy, safety care keeps you safe.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I think our next chapter here is that we picked a great path. Protecting human life is the thing. Even in the face of all of these huge conglomerates trying to put as many products on a truck as possible, there are organizations out there that align with our values and truly believe human life is worth protecting and carving out a partnership for an organization like Arbill. So I still believe we're on a good strategic path and our impact is there and our tenure with our clients is there. Our retention is incredible and our win rates are incredible. When we get people on the right track and they see the value we bring, we do good. So with that all in mind, I believe that now the story and the execution is actually simpler. There's a simplicity now to this clarity in brand and clarity in our deliverable. Then in fact, we are a company that helps organizations have world-class safety. And with that, we continue to look for what is the innovation needed to make that happen in all kinds of organizations. And because we only have one goal, don't have an accident, have a world-class safety work environment. That work is never done because processes are constantly changing. Manufacturing execution is always different. You have new developments being done every day. And our world environment and what we do and how we make things and how we create energy is constantly changing. And therefore, the risks are constantly changing. And it is our job to stay up on what they are and come up with the solution to ensure whatever that worker's path looks like for the next 30 years, they can be assured Arbill will be at their side, working with everyone to develop the right things to make sure their environment are forever safe.
I love it. And there's like maybe one last question. There's so much, I think of like 10 different things that we can take and apply. For someone listening to this, what would you say is if they started with one lesson, what would be that one lesson from your journey that an entrepreneur looking to strengthen, enliven, thrive, have their organization thrive?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of our core values is the thing that has been such a key driver outside of all the things I've covered today, because I think you can tell impact is incredibly important to me. But beyond that, I think it is the value around can do. And why that's been so important to us is that if we can see it, then we can do it. And if I put enough smart people that speak honestly and respectfully to one another, anything is possible.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Strategy at Scale. Thank you to our producer, Oscar Perez, and our teams at Scaling Up, Outthinker, and Growth Institute. If you like what you heard, please follow, download, and subscribe. I'm Kihan Krippendorf. We'll catch you soon with another episode of Strategy at Scale.